Welcome to Pollen Weather by Pollen Wise App. It's Thursday, June 25th. I'm Chief Aerobiologist Landon Bunderson, and this is the place for daily allergy news and forecasts. We have something like 50 million tons of dust coming our way. Phoenix will be the last standout for very high pollen levels today, but for the rest of the country, levels are mostly moderate to high. And while it is nice to not have what is considered very high levels, for those of you that are very sensitive to grass pollen, high is enough to get your allergies to flare up. Let's look at today's forecasted highs for mold. Ohio is going to go all the way to the top of the scale today, 100 on our pollen index. So people of Ohio, let us know if you're feeling those extremely high mold levels today. Still a lot of reasonable mold levels on the map here. Utah is still turning in very high levels day after day, and as I've thought about this, it could be due to our farmers baling hay or the aggressive construction industry. Anytime you're disturbing the soil, you're going to see mold levels rise because there are plenty of mold spores in the soil. Adding precipitation over the top of the pollen forecast, the south, southeast, as well as the Dakotas will see rain today. Houston, your rain will linger most of the day, keeping the Saharan dust at bay until early evening. Moving over to air quality, you can see the fires are making air quality poor or worse in the southwest, and Chicagoland also has some very poor air today. And lastly, temperatures are looking reasonable for this time of year. We're still waiting on the Godzilla dust cloud to impact the Gulf states, and so I've been doing a little research on what might be in that dust cloud, and the details might surprise you. But first, let's look at the forecasted high pollen levels for today. Okay, the Godzilla of dust clouds. Let's talk about it. The sky is going to get really hazy, the sunsets are going to be brilliant, but what do we need to know about this dust? To understand this dust, we need to know where it comes from. And a lot of this dust comes from an ancient lake bed that is coated with a deep layer of fossilized diatoms. Diatoms are a microscopic algae that live in fresh water and in salt water. They produce about 20 to 50% of the oxygen that is made on the planet every year. And as you can see, they're very beautiful. Diatoms can become fossilized because they have a tough silica cell wall, and you can actually find fossilized diatoms in your local nursery. It's usually called diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth can be sprinkled on your plants as a natural pest repellent. Okay, so back to Godzilla. This Godzilla of dust clouds will likely contain the dust of these lake beds, which means it's going to contain these fossilized diatoms. And the cool thing about Pollen Wise is that our sensors are the only sensors that use imagery to identify and characterize particles. So we're going to get back some beautiful images of these diatoms as they begin to come into our network of sensors. So we're going to share all of the cool imagery here on this channel. So you might be wondering, are diatoms allergenic? They're not. At least for most people, they shouldn't be. They can irritate nasal passages and lungs if you're exposed to high enough concentrations, but this is true for just about any kind of dust. For example, when I'm exposed to high dust levels, I get a stuffy nose. And that's different from when I'm exposed to pollen, because when I get a good dose of pollen, not only do I get stuffy, but I also get itchy. So for me, I can tell the difference between dust and pollen because of the way my body reacts. Even if the dust doesn't bother you, it's not healthy to breathe high levels of very fine dust for prolonged periods. So the best thing to do is stay inside when this dust storm comes through, or at least limit your outdoor exposure. So for now, we're going to watch and wait. The Godzilla of dust storms could be bringing African pollen, mold, and diatoms. Remember, the Pollen Wise app will warn you if pollen and mold levels are spiking, so download the app and turn on your alerts. Keep in mind, we don't currently report airborne diatom levels, but let's see how this Godzilla storm goes. If it turns out to be important, maybe we'll decide to add it. Thanks for listening, and remember to like and subscribe.